Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Always glad to have you with us. Well, today we are talking about two very different companies, but what they have in common is they are innovative and they are only a few years old. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about a very cool business in Pawtucket that is trying to build up Rhode Island's music industry, and we're going to hear all about that. But right now, I'm pleased to be joined by Neal Fine. Neal is founder and CEO of Aquanis, and they are at work on the future of the wind energy industry, which of course is a big topic in Rhode Island. So Neal, thanks for being with me.
Thank you for having me, Ted.
So first off, I said it's in wind energy, but it's more specific and a little more technical than that. So give people the thumbnail sketch. What do you do at Aquanis?
Sure. Well, I mean, we're focusing on developing new technologies that will help to reduce the cost of wind energy. That's our primary mission. Our primary focus in that mission is to develop what's called smart blade technologies that will allow future wind turbines to react quickly to changes in the wind. And that will allow the designers to take some mass out of the blades and help reduce the overall cost of wind. The cost has gone down, as you probably know, 70% over the last 10 years. And that's been a tremendous success, has led to tripling of capacity in the United States over that period of time. But as an industry, we need to continue to innovate.
And you guys are and we actually have a video which I think will help people conceptualize what you're working on here. It's an animation you guys put together. It kind of shows what you're trying to do to the blades on the wind turbines.
Great.
Let's take a look at that and see what you're up to.
Our solution features a plasma actuator, which is a thin tape of high-strength dielectric material with electrodes on either side. When mounted on a turbine blade, it modifies the local airflow, reacting instantly to changes in the wind. Using software to harness the microflows as the wind hits the blade, Aquanis will give turbine makers the control they need to unlock the potential we know is there, with 15 and even 20 megawatt machines.
And that was the Statue of Liberty there at the end to show just how big you think these things can get if they are very efficient.
Oh yeah, the modern turbines have rotor diameters that are larger than the A380, which is the largest commercial aircraft out there. So yeah, historically, the way the industry has brought costs down has been to go bigger and taller, right? Because the larger the rotor diameter is, the more energy each turbine can capture. The taller it is, the higher the wind speeds and the steadier the wind speeds. There's some economies of scale too, associated with going larger. If you can capture more energy per turbine, then you need fewer turbines to achieve the same amount of total capacity. But the industry faces a problem because if this trend is going to continue, then they have to innovate further in order to reduce the effects of unsteady aerodynamic loads. As you saw in the video, that's what we're trying to do.
So when we say are we thinking about what do you do if there's a hurricane, or is it just the wind? It's 5 miles per hour today. It's 25 today, and that what are we talking about? Only extremes, or is it the day to day?
Every day, day-to-day turbulence, wind shear, gusts. So if you think about the way a wind turbine is built, it's every blade has to be strong enough to withstand what's called fatigue loads, right? So a blade is going to bend in the wind, and when there's a gust, it's going to bend in reaction to the wind. So we have to build those blades strong enough to make that fatigue life long, 20, 30 years. This becomes a bigger problem as the rotors get larger, because you need more mass. More mass means more cost. If we could instead design our turbines to react quickly to changes in the wind, then we could design those turbines to have less mass, the blades to have less mass. And it's a cascading effect. If you need less mass in the blades, you need less in the hub, nacelle, tower, and foundation. And that's why it's a big deal, and that's why it's disruptive.
We are taping this in the middle of 2019, and you just this week, as we're talking, got some exciting news. You are receiving a $1 million federal grant from the Department of Energy. What are you going to do with it, and how important is it to the company?
Oh, it's hugely important. I talked about the primary focus is on developing these active load control systems, smart blade systems that will go on future wind turbines. This is a clean tech, hard tech. It could take 5 to 10 years before we see anything of the sort on the turbine. An outgrowth of the research was a new technology that has to do with protecting wind turbines from lightning. It's something that we need to do. It's a $100 million a year problem for the industry. The systems that they have are effective, but they need to be more effective. And we've come up with a simple, inexpensive blade coating that will improve the performance of the lightning protection system, help to transfer the energy from lightning to ground, essentially what it's aiming to do. That will reduce the damage caused by lightning and reduce the overall downtime due to lightning. And so the DOE has just invested $1 million towards commercializing that technology.
Wow, okay, so that's good. Yeah, you don't want that lightning to take down your wind turbine blade while you're out there on the ocean. Okay, well, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Neal Fine about the other big federal grant they already got and what they're doing with that. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about how the music industry is growing in Pawtucket and one company's work on that front. But right now, pleased to continue the conversation with Neal Fine. He is founder and CEO of the wind energy tech company, Aquanis. And I mentioned before the break, Neal, that you just got this $1 million federal grant they're going to do with trying to protect the blades from lightning, but you already have one for $3.5 million. And that was the very competitive ARPA-E. This is for like the cutting edge research the Department of Energy does. How has that been for the company, and what have you been doing with that?
Oh, it's been fantastic. So we're partnered with TPI Composites here in Rhode Island and University of Texas at Dallas and Sandia National Labs. It's a huge boost for us. It's a validation that these ideas that we have are important to the industry. And as you mentioned, it was extremely competitive. There were 3,000 applicants and 40 awards nationally. So it was a tough mountain to climb. We're thrilled to have won it. Kudos to the team, including my co-workers at Aquanis and my team members as well.
So you are not making the actual huge blades that are going right now on those are manufactured by some big companies. Right. Are you getting interest or from them yet? That they are the ones making these. They must see the need, or you're at least trying to convince them of the need to put some of these things in place.
Absolutely. So we have had discussions with many of the top 10 manufacturers. The industry is it's interesting because like 10 companies own 75% of the market. So there's not many customers that we have to convince, but it's difficult to get to the buyers. But we have had interest from 2 of the top 10 and have entered into discussions about how to get a path to commercialization with one of them.
So, you mentioned earlier the cost. People don't necessarily realize, just as with solar energy, the cost of wind power has gone down enormously to do it in the last decade or so, which has been a sea change. It's part of why we're seeing more projects on land and offshore. How big do you think the opportunity is? If the industry gets the technology right and it's rolled out and the regulations are correct and all the rest, I mean, how much power do you think we could conceivably get from wind in the States? Well,
wind industry, like I mentioned before, it's an unqualified success. It's quadrupled in capacity since 2008. The cost of energy has dropped 70%. I was just recently the last few days, I was at the ARPA-E Energy Summit, and somebody spoke about from a utility in Colorado, and they just signed a power purchase agreement for 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour for a wind farm. So that's obviously what we need to achieve. We're at 7%, I think, 6.5 to 7% of our grid demand comes from wind energy today. There's always been talk about trying to get to 20% by 2030. I think we're on track for that as an industry. Now there's talk about trying to get to 40-50% of grid demand from wind energy by 2050. So these are lofty goals, but it's like I say, we're on track. And so that's why it seems like the timing is right to try and disrupt the design of wind turbines to help the industry achieve those goals.
And Rhode Island, worked hard originally the Kucheri administration, then followed through with the Chafee and Raimondo administrations to try to be on the bleeding edge, they hoped, of the wind industry by getting out front on offshore wind in the States. We had the first offshore wind farm, the small demonstration project off Block Island. Now there's some bigger ones in process. Are you seeing evidence that the wind industry, that Rhode Island is becoming a hub for offshore, as state leaders have hoped when they put money into those projects early? I do see
evidence of that. This is not my area of expertise per se, but we recently had a discussion that was facilitated by Rhode Island Commerce Corporation with some companies that are looking to build their offshore presence here in Rhode Island. So I do see evidence that we are developing supply chain here, and we obviously want to be part of that supply chain. But I like to brag all the time when I'm in the company of wind turbine people that I'm from Rhode Island, because we're the first with an offshore wind farm.
And do people know that? Is it well known around the country that we did it first?
You kidding me? Yeah, it's around the world. Yeah, no, it's a big deal, and we obviously we have some momentum there. And I think I'm very bullish about Rhode Island's participation in this industry. And
Aquanis actually got some early state support. You got the Slater Technology Fund, the sort of venture capital fund that taxpayer backed, gave you a small amount of money early on, and then you got an innovation voucher for commerce. And were those helpful? Were those what you needed to?
We wouldn't be here today without Slater. Slater is they were first in for Aquanis. We've had about $500,000 in seed funding, and most of that's from Slater, plus one other investor that Slater helped bring in. Thorne Sparkman, the managing director at Slater, has been a tremendous help to Aquanis since day one, helping us to define our value prop and talking to potential customers. So obviously wouldn't be here without them. And that money, which you said was a small amount, was huge to us at the time, because it allowed us to get some early results that then resulted in $3.5 million from RPE, $250,000 from National Science Foundation, and additional venture capital.
That's true. Well, those early money, you want it to be dwarfed later on, but without it, you never get to those bigger numbers now. So, all right, Neal Fine, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll be keeping an eye on Aquanis as they continue their research, but don't go away. Coming up next, Lindsey Lerner from Level Exchange will talk to us about the music industry and what she's up to up in Pawtucket. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, and right now I'm pleased to be joined by Lindsey Lerner. Lindsey is the founder of Level Exchange, a music business up in Pawtucket with an interesting business model. Lindsey, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So that's how I tee you up. Can you give people just a sense? Tell us what you do at Level Exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. Level Exchange is a co-working and production space, like you said, up in Pawtucket, and we're there most days of the week making music and recording audio, video production, as well as doing a lot of networking events for the local musicians and the local music industry that we're building here.
So walk us through so people can understand kind of what how people come to you and when they do, what you do for them. Take us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. We started way back 2015 or so, when I was still an undergrad at Bryant. I originally started out at art school, which was an interesting
photog, right?
Yeah, I was studying photography for a while. Art school dropout, ended up at Bryant of all places, which I think is the antithesis of art school.
That is a big swing from an art school to a business school.
And ended up studying anthropology there, which allows for a unique view on the music industry now, and also I think allows a lot of empathy for the creative process, which a lot of musicians and creative people come to us with. But now, over the past 5 years or so of being in business, a lot of it is word of mouth. So typically, artists are coming to us. Whether it's middle school, high school bands that are just starting out, or they're established musicians who are looking for gigs, all the way up through, I do a lot of tour managing on my own with more well-established national, international acts. But for the local musicians, a lot of them are coming to us and they're like, I'm really good, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then we go through that process with them. And a lot of that is in the form of content creation. That is what we found is the biggest key to success in today's society, where everything, obviously, is very media driven. And so being able to have the high quality content that supports their abilities live is super, super crucial.
Talk us through that a little more, because
Sure.
I've read some of the other interviews you've done, and I thought that was really interesting how, because you think of the old-fashioned way you think of the music
Sure.
business as someone, you're out doing live hits, live sets, and then suddenly a record label finds you and you put out but now in a way you
Right.
also you're trying to do some of the stuff you would have done at that point now to get to that point, right?
Exactly, absolutely. We started originally in 2015 when I was at Bryant. We were an online platform that facilitated the booking process. So we were matchmaking between local bars, coffee shops, restaurants, and these local musicians. But what was happening was musicians were booking, or restaurants were hiring them, and that was great, but we weren't getting a ton of people to come out because they weren't really well known. And the restaurant, these local restaurateurs in Providence alone, we have 300 plus restaurants. They have more to do than to worry about their entertainment. And then the musicians, they didn't know enough necessarily to be able to promote themselves in the best way possible. And so when people were going online and they were searching for local music, they were getting really, really poor quality photos, poor quality audio, poor quality video, and people were like, I'd rather stay home or do anything else than go and see whatever that is. And so that was really unfortunate as people who are out and we're in the scene and we're seeing the talent, like you said. And so we pivoted a few years ago into matchmaking rather than the bars and the coffee shops and the restaurants, pivoted into matchmaking between photographers, videographers, studio engineers. Obviously, being in a state that has 11 colleges and universities, we've got Brown, RISD, New England Tech, Johnson & Wales. We have all these great schools, all these amazing, talented students, and they're itching to do things and be match made with local musicians.
So it's interesting because it sounds like the audience is not as forgiving as you might expect of a smaller scale. We're gonna we have some video rolling where we talk of some of the bands working in your space, but that people are expecting a fairly high quality production value even from a band that's just starting out or a singer or something.
Totally. I think a lot of it might even be a little bit subconscious. I think people tend to gravitate towards the shiny, pretty thing that people want to go towards. And so what has been great has been being able to work with not only really, really talented musicians, but also the photographers, the videographers, and the studio engineers. And that really has changed our view from very narrowly looking at just the musicians to really holistically looking at the entire industry and being able to put those pieces together to build a platform for all of them.
What kind of musicians come through most often at Level Exchange? What genres do you see the most?
All of them. I have a soft spot for hip hop. But we don't have a ton of hip hop artists. We've had a few that have come through. A lot of singer-songwriters we've been very fortunate enough to work with, but really across the board, everything from metal to R&B to hip hop, everything in between.
And anybody who's you've been particularly pleased to see, you've watched them working hard and you see them taking off?
Sure. Oh, totally. Marielle Kraft is she's a Rhode Islander. She left us. I'm still trying to get her back, but she's originally a Rhode Islander. She is doing phenomenally well. She's got new music coming out actually tomorrow, which is super exciting. But I mean, really, all of the musicians that we work with are top notch, and we're working with not only Rhode Island musicians, but musicians from all over the country, especially when they're touring New York to Boston or Boston to New York. One of the biggest issues that Rhode Island has, I think, from the overview level, I think, is that because we're so close to New York and Boston, we get chipped out of a lot of the bigger bands, because the larger companies like Live Nation, they have proximity clauses, and musicians simply can't play shows in Boston and play a show here because that's what it says in their contract, which most people don't know. And so if you're looking from a bigger perspective, when it's a great act is playing in Boston, you're like, well, why don't they come to the Strand? Why don't they come here? They can't.
They're not allowed to. Oh, that's fascinating.
It's not really for them.
It's interesting because it's come up before in the show that while there are lots of upsides to Rhode Island's location, there can actually be downsides to being so close to some other very big places.
True. But I think we've switched it quite a bit. Rather than looking at that top 1% or top 5% of the music industry, we have tons and thousands of very talented musicians here right in Rhode Island, and so we've put our attention on them, and that's made a big difference.
So a thing you've talked about that I think is fascinating is people are going to hear this and they might think to themselves, we're talking about the nonprofit art space and everything, but you're very focused on this as a business, the music as an industry. People might want to think of like Nashville, where you think, this is big business doing music. Talk about the way people should be thinking about it, how you view this.
Sure, 100%. I think that was one of the biggest issues that we faced from the beginning, is that a lot of people, when I'm having conversations with them about all of this, is they go, we start talking about music, and then they go to art, and then they go to nonprofit. And that continues to perpetuate this poor, starving artist mindset. And that's a huge problem in the creative space across the board, is that it's always like, oh, well, you know, it's fun, so you don't have to get paid for it. And that's not the case. That's not how, you know, that's not how Jay-Z and Beyonce get to where they are. This is really looking at the industry from the industry perspective. The music industry globally is worth $15 billion, and Rhode Island is missing out on a lot of that. But being in Pawtucket has been phenomenal because it's so small, because obviously we know some things have left Pawtucket, but I think we have a huge opportunity there. The downtown space is ready for the taking. We're in with the Guild. We do live events every single weekend with them, every Friday, every Saturday, in addition to all of our programming that we have in our space as well.
So you're bullish on Pawtucket. It's like, yeah, we know about the Bell Club, and we know about the hospital, and what's going to happen with Hasbro and all that. But sure. you feel good about the city's prospects right now. Oh,
100%. And they've been extremely, extremely helpful. The Guild has been absolutely phenomenal to work with, in addition to working with the Pawtucket Foundation. Jen Brody has been amazing, and Jean Boyle over at the mayor's office has been phenomenal, and power team of women that they've got going on over there.
So we only have like a minute or so left.
Sure.
There are going to be people watching who maybe they nurse dreams themselves of being a musician, or they have maybe a son or daughter or a grandchild or somebody who they think has talent and they want to do it, but they don't even know where to start and even how to think about it, knowing it's not an easy road necessarily.
Sure.
What's the first advice you give people when you're being, conk beyond just like follow your dreams and practice? What do you tell people, brass tacks?
Yeah, it's persistence. That's really, really what the music industry takes, in my experience, at least. I think showing up is super, super important, and being consistent. So showing up, being persistent, and really just being adamant about what you want. It takes a long time, even for the national acts that I have toured with and been very fortunate to run all over the country with. These are guys and girls that have been putting in the work for between 7 and 10 years that are seeing the success. But when you get to that level, it really...
So even the act you hear on the radio, the song that becomes a big hit, which feels like, oh, this person just appeared and they're a big hit instantly, that's almost never the case.
Oh, never.
Yeah.
Never. I've seen a lot. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of very successful people, and it comes down to really just putting the work in over time.
We have time for just one more, which is, I'm curious what you think of streaming. In the end, do you think it's a positive? Do you think it's a negative?
We need more than a minute.
Yeah, for especially for bands that are starting out regionally.
Sure. I think that it is a great platform. I know a lot of people have issues with Spotify, but I think when used correctly, it's a tool just like any other. And if you can put in the work to figure out how to use it to your advantage, I was just out touring the entire month of May with an artist who makes his entire living off of Spotify. So
really?
It can be done.
So even though, because you always hear, it's like a penny for, barely a penny for so many.
0.006 cents per stream, but
he makes a living off of that because he's successful. He's got enough streams. So
exactly.
Is it a problem though for the sort of the middle class of bands that it's going to get some streams but not like Beyonce level?
It's just like any other business endeavor. I think a lot of people don't look at musicians as entrepreneurs, but they are. They're small businesses, and looking at them and having the musicians themselves look at themselves very entrepreneurially is super, super important. And you wouldn't have your business run off of one stream of income, so you need to be able to look at it from all these different streams of income and revenue.
All right, Lindsey Lerner, turning Pawtucket into Nashville North. She's the founder of Level Exchange. Thank you for being here with us, Lindsey, today. And thank you for joining us on Executive Suite. If you missed any of this episode or any other episode of the show, you can catch them all on our website, WPRI.com, or subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. We'll see you back here next week on Executive Suite.